You're giving me the cue. Have we started
I'll
yet?
just move the camera.
We're good. Look how many cameras we've got here now, you know. It's like, it's going to be a Channel 9 production pretty soon, you know. Eddie will be ringing me, you know. Sup, Ed? You know, so... there was a video I shared last week online. It was about hairdressers and barbers, you know, that we're just giving people an opportunity to fulfil their dreams potentially, or even consider a dream of being a hairdresser or a barber. That's been seen by over 2,000, I think just under 2,000, 1,900 people have viewed or shared that particular video. And so it's really powerful what these guys are doing on a Monday night and the different things that we're doing. There's a lot of people following. I think the stats were 6,500 people in the last month. 6.2 have viewed the stuff that Bridge Builders is doing. So it's cool. So it's good to have our guys online. And I think, Josh, I don't know if we've heard anything back yet for you around your acting career. But that went out to nearly 260, I think, last week. So it's good. So tonight, we're going to continue in that sort of theme. And we're going to be talking about your BO.
Body odour.
Hey?
Body odour.
Your body odour?
Fit.
No, not your body odour, all right? We were talking about your BO. There's sprays for that. Tonight we're going to be talking about things that happen in your life that are your blockers, right? In your life that stop you. How many of you actually have a really clear goal in your life, like a dream you've got? It's really clear, you know? Yeah, cool. So there's probably 12 in the room, you know? And well, tonight we want to talk about breaking down your goals, how to actually achieve them, because sometimes we can have these dreams that can feel like, yeah, it's way out there and we're never going to be able to achieve it. And then there are obstacles that stop us. So we're going to break down your goals and we're going to talk to you a bit about your obstacles of what stops you and blocks you. And it's not often what you think. Sometimes, and it's not a pun, it's not just about what we think. There's often other reasons that stops us, obstacles that stop us. So I remember about a year ago, my youngest son and I decided that it would be a cool thing to become importers. So we started two businesses at the same time. It's probably not a good idea. But around May, June last year, we started Caravan Care and we started JDP International Trading. So JDP is just simply the initials, Josh, Daniel, Phil. And JDP International Trading, and that's our importing company. And so when we sort of looked at importing goods into Australia and what that might look like and blah, 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 it was kind of like this huge idea or dream that, yeah, we're going to be amazing importers, you know. And it's been a really difficult process over the course of the year to be able to actually achieve that dream, because there's been plenty of obstacles. Plenty of blockers, and some of it is personal, you know, it's your own stuff, and other stuff is on the floor, that is there. And then other stuff has been environmental. It could be money, it could be timing, it could be all those sorts of things. And so I wonder, we're just going to write down what are some of the obstacles that you find in your life that stop you from achieving your dreams. Becca's going to scribe. Go.
Money.
Money. Yeah, it's an obs one. Yep, money can be.
Age.
Age, careful now. Yeah, it could be your age. Being too young, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
Time.
Time, yeah.
Location.
Location, what do you mean by location?
Like, if wherever you want to be, like if it's something in the city and you're not that far away.
Yeah, if I want to be a Chinese importer and not in China, that's going to be difficult, you know? So I've got to at some point go to China, which we are planning to do in November. So, yep.
Having a license?
Having a license? Yeah, all right, it could be, yeah. If she's not spelling it right, the rules are when you write it on the board, it's spelled right, okay?
Exactly.
Right? Yep.
Family.
Family can be an obstacle for sure. Yep.
Friend.
What?
Friend.
Like a friend?
Your friend could be an obstacle? They sure can. Yep. Yep.
Experience.
Experience, that's a cool one, man. Yeah, deep answer, bro. Yeah. Yeah.
This is why I don't answer.
Education, yeah, how smart you are or not smart enough, yeah, absolutely. I know for us doing the importing, we've had to learn a lot, you know. and they break it down into little bite-sized pieces because your brain starts to look like, you know, a slushy on a hot day. Yeah?
Lack of motivation.
Motivation, yeah, lack of, yeah, totally. That's a challenge. Cassie? Oh, you pinched that one. Yeah, nice. Yep.
Self-doubt.
Pardon?
Self-doubt.
Self-doubt. Yeah. Mitch?
I'd want to say roadworks are definitely an obstacle.
Roadworks? Yeah.
True.
Yeah, if I've got to get freight to the airport on time,
Mr. Cell phone.
roadworks can be a pain.
Yeah.
You know,
Got it.
you missed the plane. It's all bad. Yep.
Transport.
Transport, roadworks and transport got a theme happening here.
Location.
Yeah.
How fit you are.
How fit? Yeah, how fit you are, what he's saying.
For some jobs.
Yeah, for some people. Yeah, and their goals. Yeah, how fit. Oh, Beck's going to talk a little bit about that. Yeah.
Mental health.
Your mental health. Yeah.
This is a good list.
It's a great list. Your writing's so nice too, by the way. I couldn't write like that. Yep.
Physical health.
Physical health. Yeah, what's going on in your body?
Opportunities or lack of opportunities.
Yeah. That's a really interesting one. You know, John Maxwell, that a bunch of you are reading his book right now, and he talks about opportunity being like a train that never stops at
I
your
love
station.
that one.
Hey? Yeah, it's just, and it doesn't stop at your station. It just slows down, you know. Hey?
Not going to knock on your door.
Yeah, it's not going to knock on your door. You've got to, opportunity is like a train that comes past, you know, it slows down at the station. You just got to jump on, you know, you just got to hope the door's open. You know, so you jump on, otherwise it's going to look, you know, like a bug on a windscreen. So the challenge sometimes is the opportunity comes past, and often what we do is we sit or stand on the station and just do this. Opportunity just came past me, and then we say this, oh, opportunities never come my way. Well, there's a leap of faith in that, and you've got to step out into and onto the train of opportunity. Otherwise, it will just go. It'll just move on to the next person. Anything else? It's a pretty good list. How many of you have all these things?
I don't have a lot.
Yes. Yeah, that's describing me right about now. At any point in our journey of trying to achieve our dreams, you might bump into one or more or all of these particular things. You know, and in a moment, Beck is going to talk to you a little bit about how to not let these stop you. Have you ever heard of a thing called a beta blocker? A beta blocker is something they actually, well, they use it in health, but they use it in sport as well. And what a beta blocker does, it's a medication that you can take that actually slows down your body's ability to produce adrenaline. And what it does is it begins to slow down your heart rate, right? So that you can pace yourself. And often if someone's had a heart condition or something like that, they'll use a beta blocker so the heart rate doesn't accelerate beyond what it can cope with. Yeah.
Oh wait, never mind. I was going to say blood thinners. What I was thinking of for my
You-
my
you-
step-parent, she's got like a stent in her heart or something, so
A
she has
stent?
to take blood thinners the rest of her life.
Yeah, so usually as you get older, your arteries kind of clog up a little bit with all the fats and things, and they usually use an aspirin-based drug that thins the blood down. That's why when somebody who is on some sort of medication, they might cut themselves, they bleed for quite a fair time because the clotting agent is being diluted. So the dog's having a fun time. And so what it also does, what a beta blocker does, is it actually slows the rhythm of your heart right down so that the adrenaline, so you don't have a heart attack. And they use this sort of stuff in sport as well to sort of slow down the burn, you know, that happens in sport. And so the interesting part about a beta blocker is you can have this in your life. You can actually have these things that appear in your life that are like this. These can all be beta blockers. These are the things that slow your dream down, that slow your adrenaline down, that slow your motivation down, that stop you from thinking that, oh yeah, maybe I could do this, or maybe I could have that. You get a beta blocker in your life and you've got to do something about it. Now sometimes there's good reason to have a beta blocker. So I would talk about my importing company and the guys that are managing us. They're like our beta blockers. They're slowing us down so that we can actually fulfill all of the things that they need us to do to have a successful importing company. So we're like, yeah, you know, we're running at it and going, yeah, we're going to be millionaires, and we're still poor. So, you know, the challenge is like they have to slow you down a little bit so these people can become a beta blocker. They actually slow your processes down. They don't stop your heart, because that would be a bad thing too, wouldn't it, eh?
Yep.
Be a bit orcs. So, but what they do is they slow it down to a point where they say, hang on, we need to control how this is working. And so for you guys, if you're trying to achieve your dreams and your goals and your aspirations and things like that, and you have these, and these are some of the things that you battle, you could see this as a beta blocker, something that's stopping or slowing you. Now, often when we hit an obstacle or we hit a blocker, we kind of think, you know, what do I have to do to push through this, to fight this, or to fight against it? Not every blocker in your life is a negative one. It can feel negative, but there are good reasons why it has to slow down. You know, if I'm going to get on a plane with Josh or with James, I want to know that they've been trained well. You know, they just didn't come off their aviation simulator at home on their Nintendo, you know, and get behind the throttles of a plane and go, yeah, I can fly this. You know, I've done, Atari or Nintendo or Xbox or whatever. Sure, I can fly this. I want to know that they have been slowed down and that they have been trained really well and competent. So when I put my trust into their hands and my life into their hands, I can really trust that they've been trained. Does that make sense? So, Becca, I want you to talk a little bit about how to overcome and how to break down some of this this sort of stuff with your goals and your dreams, mate.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Phil.
Sorry,
That's okay.
I headbutted that. Sorry.
Thank you.
You
You broke it.
It's all right, it's amazing.
I didn't do that, she did that.
We're under control. Yeah, thanks, Phil. We've been chatting over the last couple of weeks about what are some things that we could share on a night like tonight that would really add value to you where you're at the moment, and we came up with BO. And the whole point of it is really just to share some of the things from our experience that has really helped us achieve our goals. And in particular tonight, I wanted to talk a little bit about probably two things. The first one is when I first asked myself how I've achieved my goals, I came to a realisation, and this might sound funny, but the best thing or the most important thing for me about having a goal is actually having one. There's been times in my life where I've kind of got around to that normal typical January sort of New Year's resolution time, and I've thought, no, I won't do goals now. I want to chill out on the beach and I want to have holidays, and I'll get to goals in February. And then May comes around and I still haven't set my goals. There's definitely been times where I just thought, and I did goal planning a little while ago, I don't really need to revisit that. And I've maybe been a little bit lazy about it or not so focused. And I can actually connect me achieving my goals to the times where I've been more focused. You know, I think a lot of us can tend to just sort of get up every day and go to work or go to school or hang out with our mates and not necessarily be really intentional about what it is that we want to achieve. And we've all got, I shouldn't touch that. We've all got, really big dreams and things that you want to do, right? Every single one of us have things that we want to do. We might not necessarily be able to say, this is exactly what I want to do, but you've got some idea. You've got things that you're passionate about, you've got things that you enjoy doing, and you kind of have that idea in your mind. You might not know exactly how to get there, but all of us have those kind of aspirations to be somebody, to do something significant, to go after a dream in our heart. Well, and the same is for me. I thought about that over the last couple of years for me and how I've kind of structured my goals. And for me, the most important thing is actually just stopping and being intentional and saying, what is it that I want to achieve? And I actually haven't done that for a little while. A few years ago, I was excellent at it. I was sharing with Phil a story the other day as we were preparing. I had a wall at my unit where I used to live, and the whole wall was just goals. And it was planned out like you wouldn't believe. I had massive stick-it notes this big, and on every stick-it note there was 4 months of the year. And in every single month of the year there was 12 goals, and they were colour-coded, little tick boxes, and then I had how I was tracking with them. At the end of every week I'd get excited to come home and tick the box and measure the goal, and did I achieve that? One of the goals I remember was doing 12 audiobooks in a year. And I thought, well, the only way to do 12 in a year is to do one a month. That made sense to me. So I wrote down the titles of each book that I wanted to do in every single month, and throughout the whole year I could map it on my wall. I felt a little bit crazy at times, but it made sense to me being visual and being up on the wall. And some people might like to do goals that way and be really detailed like me, and other people, that kind of level of detail won't be for you. But at the end of the day, I recognise that I achieved so much more in a time where I was intentional about what I wanted, in comparison to times where it was like, oh yeah, I know what I want, but didn't necessarily go after it or wasn't clear about, I've written it down, I've talked to somebody about it, and I'm being intentional and focused on my goal. So my first piece of encouragement to you, I've learnt from my life, I have to do something with it. I can't just imagine it in my mind, and I can't just want it in my heart. I physically have to have a goal, write it down, talk about it, try and plan it out, rather than it just being this nice big fluffy dream. The other thing, and I wanted to pick a story that was relevant and something that you could really relate to tonight. Not all of you might be able to relate to the exact goal, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. And that's trying to run a marathon. Okay, not everyone in the room wants to be a marathon runner, but you'll understand the principles of what I'm talking about. For me, marathon running was too big in my mind. When I first thought this is something that I want to do, it was like 10 years ago, even probably more than that. I remember being in grade 6 on one of those green garden chairs, yeah? Everyone knows a green garden chair. It's like a school chair you sit on. Like, it is so clear in my mind. And I was sitting in front of a video camera, and they said, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I was like, I'm going to run a marathon. That's all I could think of. That was in grade 6. I was like 11 years old. So I've wanted to do it for a long time. But it was about 7 years ago where I really got serious and thought, this is what I want to do. I don't know if you've ever had that, where you've thought of something and you've kind of not necessarily taken it to the next step because maybe it felt a little bit too big. You know, it felt like you needed to be a different person, you needed to have more capacity maybe, you just were a little bit frightened of how big your goal was, that thing that really scared you a lot. Well, that was what marathon running for me was, what it felt like, you know. The most I'd ever done back then in my life was like 3Ks, and I thought to myself, how am I going to get from there to there? And we've all had those moments in our life where we have a really big goal and we're not quite sure what to do with it. It's almost overwhelming. For me, I was actually quite afraid because I thought, what happens if I don't make it? And for a lot of marathon runners, the first and the only thing you're focused about is crossing that finish line. And it doesn't matter if you're crawling or stumbling or walking or running or, I don't know, just rolling across the finish line. If you make it, you've done it. And that's something that you all, anyone that's wanting to do a marathon, that's what they're aiming to do. And the process for me of my marathon training, and the bit that I probably didn't anticipate, was that I didn't think I would have to break it down as much as I did. And that's really part of what we're talking about tonight, is breaking down a bigger goal so that it's much smaller. A lot of the time when I'm sharing with young people about their goals, I talk about, don't try and eat the whole elephant, just eat its foot first. And I know it's a really weird analogy, but it don't, not that any of us are eating elephants, but it really works. You have this massive goal, and sometimes it even seems a little bit too unattainable, like you're not quite there yet. And I have dreams and visions in my life now that I think I'm not quite there yet. And I have to actually physically break it down. So there was a couple of things that was stopping me, my blockers when it came to my marathon training. One of them was that I had no idea what I was doing. I was making it all up. I didn't consult coaches, I didn't ask anyone for their opinion, I was just running. Now that wasn't necessarily the greatest, but that was all I knew how to do. I knew how to run, so I figured I'd just run further, right? It's not that hard. Well, actually, it is. I had to change my nutrition. So as I got over 10Ks, I realised that my body said no. It just said no. It was like, if you're not going to put more fuel in me, I'm not doing anything. So I had to come up with a whole nutritional plan of like what I'm going to eat, when I'm going to eat it, making sure that I've got all the nutrients on board for my body to actually be able to do what I was asking it to do. The third thing I ran into was my technique. The way that I was running. There was a problem with my feet. I had this funny thing where one foot was straight and the other one was like little pigeon-toed a little bit, which meant that I was running on a bit of a lean-to without realising. I was kind of like lean running.
Just going around the corners,
doing circles a little bit, right? But the problem with that was that it was inefficient and I was using way too much energy. So I would get up to sort of 15, 16, 17 Ks and I would just be exhausted and I would just want to quit. So there was all of these things that I was bumping into, and every time I hit it, it was like hitting a ceiling. I felt like I couldn't go any further. And you've all probably had moments in your life where you're chasing a dream and you've come up against something and it kind of stops you in your tracks. And that's exactly what was happening for me. And I got to about 20 Ks and I started to get my rhythm. You know, I got my nutrition under control. Even though I was just doing my own thing, it was working for me. You know, I got my balance and my body coordinated a little bit more. I started getting a training plan and everything started working for me. And then I got to about 22 Ks and everything just went wrong. And the problem was that I got blisters on my feet. Has anybody ever had a blister?
Yep.
Oh my gosh, it feels like your foot is getting shredded, and it's so much worse in your mind than what it actually really is. But it was terrible. It was a terrible experience. Every single time I'd go for a run and do 22 Ks, it would just I couldn't do it anymore. I would get to that point and my feet would just be blistered everywhere. And now clearly I didn't think about my shoes because I just thought I'll run with whichever shoes that I had. And there was this incredible moment where I didn't really reach out to anybody and talk to anybody about what was going on. I just tried to be Superwoman and do it all on my own. So I got closer and closer and closer to this marathon, and I'd only done 23 Ks. A piece of advice I received from a marathon runner once was, if you can get to 35, you'll make it. So if you train and you do up to 35 Ks, the rest is mental. Now, while I've done a marathon and I agree with that, I wasn't at 35 Ks, I was at 22, and I had a big problem. And so it was like 3 weeks before the marathon, right? The most I've run is 23 Ks, and you can imagine the mental struggle at that point. What if I don't make it? I haven't run enough Ks, I haven't done enough training. There's all of these things going through my mind, and I shared that with a friend of mine, and then there was a whole bunch of people that kind of found out about it and realised that there was this one thing that was stopping me from achieving my dream of running a marathon. That was my shoes. And I needed a new pair of shoes, and it was only 3 weeks before the marathon, and funnily enough, money was a problem for me at that point. I couldn't afford this new pair of shoes, and I thought, stuff it, I'll just do it anyway. And I'll run with blisters, and it'll be painful, and I'll be bleeding, and it won't matter. Because money was a problem, and I couldn't get around it. A whole bunch of people around me decided that they, without me knowing, would go and buy me a new pair of shoes. And they did, and I was totally surprised and blown away. And then I put that new pair of runners on, and I went for a run, and what happened? No! Which I was really happy about.
They ran for you.
I got to 22 and 23 and 24, and that day I just kept on running. And I got to about 27 Ks, and I was just like, yes! I'm not in pain! It was the best. But then the problem was, you know how I don't know if you've ever heard this, but people say, don't buy a new pair of shoes before a marathon because you've got to wear them in. Everyone tells you to wear your shoes in, right? Well, I didn't have time to wear my shoes in, so I just ran on the day, and I think I went from 27 to 42 in one day, which, again, is not what you do, bad advice. My point is, I had to change what I was doing. I needed people around me to help me change the way that I was thinking about it, and we've got a couple of our leaders sharing next week about some of the support systems around you, which is going to be really amazing. But the whole point of that story is there was one thing. It was just one thing. I got my nutrition, I got my training, I got my mental strength. I had all the blocks in place. And the one thing that was stopping me was money. And it was stopping me. I didn't want it to stop me. I tried to get around it and I couldn't. I didn't ask for help. So it was this constant blocker. And I look back and I think if it wasn't for people around me, I wouldn't have achieved what I did, which is pretty powerful. But at the end of the day, that one thing stopped me, or was stopping me, until the point where other people rescued me. And you might have times in your life where you've been going after a dream of yours, and there's just that one thing. It could be your self-doubt. That's a massive one when it comes to achieving our dreams and our aspirations. It could be people around you saying, you'll never achieve that. Do you know how many people told me that? You won't make it. You've only been doing short distances. I had so many people tell me that I couldn't do it. And I proved them wrong because I changed what I was doing. And it was that one thing. And it could be the one thing for you. And my biggest piece of advice for you in tackling a really big dream that you've got is that if you leave it big, it's too overwhelming. You've got to break it down. You've got to do the little steps along the way to get to where you want to go. If I thought about it as a big 42 Ks for ages, I wouldn't have done anything about it. I probably went around in circles for 4 or 5 years thinking, I'll get there one day, I'll get there one day, I'll get there one day. And I never did until I broke it down and went, right, today I'm going to go from 2.5 to 3. And tomorrow I'm going to go from 3.5 to 4. And I had to do all the little baby steps along the way in order to achieve my big dream. And obviously there was a lot of support from people around me along the way, but
I'm going to butt in there.
Go for it.
So the interesting thing about Beck running is the run for the young marathon came out of that dream. So the event that we run every year here that affects thousands of people that come from all over the world was because one person had a dream to run a marathon, so she thought, stuff it, I'll just run my own. So it was out of that idea, and now those of you who are runners would know this, but those of you who don't, which is like me, I like to watch running, my motorcycle. So the challenge Beck now has, if you look at Beck's screensaver on her phone, it has 777 written on the front of it. And what that simply is, her next goal is to run 7 marathons in 7 days in 7 continents of the world. There is only a handful of people that have actually done this in the world. It's something like $40,000 to enter, is that right?
35 euros.
70,000 Australian dollars. So
Gonna do it!
Yeah, but she's got it written there to remind her, and she now has a coach who is training her to run 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents. I don't know about you, but the thought of running...
Which feels really, really, really big.
Yeah, it's really big. So you don't get a chance to recover because the next day you're running the next marathon and you've got to get jet lag from the planes, and they've worked out how to do that. Now the interesting part is they just did on the weekend, what do they call that run down the ocean?
Great Ocean Road.
Yeah, that thing. They do this Great Ocean, good for a motorcycle ride, but they did this, 7,000 people did the Great Ocean Road, and the trainer that Becca is training under, out of the 12 categories,
So they had a 14k, a 6k, a half marathon and a full marathon. So there's 12 podium spots.
And how many of those people that he's training came in those categories?
4, including himself.
And he won what?
The half marathon.
He won the half marathon.
One of our runners won the
So out of the 12 categories, the guy that's training Beck plus the people he's training took out 4 categories of the 12. You think if you're going to have someone that's going to train you to run 7 marathons in 7 continents in 7 days, better to live it. And he does, and he's out there training people to do that. So, and one of his people he trained won the 42k. So amazing stuff. And so the bottom line there is that if you don't change something in your life, it's that saying, we've heard this saying a lot, the explanation of insanity is keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. That's, if you always do what you've always done, you always get what you always got. That's kind of the phrase. And so for you guys, if you want to achieve your dreams, your goals, your plan, for whatever it is, if it's a short-term gig, if it's for the next 12 months or whatever it was, it's interesting. I don't, Beck, her room, her house used to look very weird. It was a bit like our office. When you walk into our office, you'll see all the planning going on the walls in our office, but her house was strange because you'd walk into it and there's all these post-it notes with all of these things all laid out of different aspects of her life and where she was in that. So in a very short space of time, if you stopped and just sort of looked around your room, you could get a pretty good idea of where Beck was in her world, which was amazing. I don't know about you, but I'm not that detailed. I love a phone, and I've got a note section in my phone, and I have 10 goals that I want to achieve in the next block of time, and there was 5. I have the 5 H's. I met with my financial planner about 2 years ago, and he said, "Phils, what's your next goals?" And I said to him, "Well, I've got 5 H's for the next for this next 12 months." Or it was 2 years since I've met with him, and he says, "What are they?" And I explained the 5 H's, and 4 of those H's I've accomplished in the past 2 years, and I've got 1 to go. And so that's not about, yeah, but it is, because I feel I look at that and go, yay, and one of them was to have a Harley. One of my goals was to have a Harley. I didn't know how that was going to happen, and I turned 50, and that happened, So it's amazing what can happen when you write something down. Now I've got 10 other goals here. Some of those include my life and my son's lives and things like that. But if you don't write it down, even if it's a dot point, even if it's just sort of clicking it in there and committing to it, and then you just go back to it, and you will get disillusions. You will have issues like Becca, when she was talking about money, I think the shoes were $300 or $400 to buy. She just didn't have the money for it. But like we said last week, if you write it down and you tell people, other people will get excited about your goals. There's always going to be people that say you can't do this. There's always going to be those people in your life that say you'll never achieve it. When Beck says to me she's going to do 7 marathons in 7 days in 7 continents, my internal voice goes, and I'm going, like, who even thinks that? That's insane. Right? For me, it's like, you know, your body, you're going to be like a rag doll on the end, you know. And what am I doing? I'm a blocker right then. So I don't share any of that because I'm thinking I'm not running it. I'll sit back here in my chair with my cordial going, are you dead yet? You know? Well, I mean dead, real dead, you know. Like, because that is just insane. But I'm not doing it. So what right do I have to try and block, destroy, or create an obstacle in her goal, in her dream? We don't have that right. Your opinion of somebody else's dreams is zero, unless you're affirming them and encouraging them and bringing other people around them. That's the difference that makes. If you want to know how to break it down, how to overcome these obstacles, be the person that lifts people up and says, "That's not for me, but Roger to you, mate. You know, what can you do? Who do you know that can help this person achieve that?" Now, Becca's going to go on a campaign. Even her health affected her in this past 12 months. But every day she keeps saying to me, you know, "Oh, I've got to go for a run." I don't wake up thinking like that. Just saying. I just don't wake up and go, "Oh, my body's feeling like running." You know? My body's feeling like sleeping. You know? My body's saying, you know, "Who turned the sun on?" You know? That's what my body's saying. You know? "Is it Saturday?" You know? That's what my body's saying. But that's not her body. Her body wakes up, she goes, "Oh, running time." You know? I vomit. So the challenge, guys, is simply like this. To achieve, and this is stuff that you will experience right through until the day you drop off your perch. This is the stuff that you will experience right through your life. You have to make a decision. If you don't have a dream, pinch someone else's. You know, but if somebody started that idea of the 777, just one person said, "I wonder if I could run 7 marathons in 7 days in 7 continents." And how many tens of thousands of people said to him, "You are an idiot." Now, you know how many people are in that elite group of people? Probably about 30 people around the world. Isn't that amazing? So it can start with one seed, one idea, one thought, and be the person. Make a decision tonight. From tonight on, I'm going to stop having an opinion about somebody else's goal. Be a person who's positive, who's affirming, who's saying, "We know that she wants to run 7 things, you know. Who do you know that can give money to her? She's got to raise $70,000. Who do you know in TV that could promote her and coach her and help her? Who do you know?" Because you know what? One day, all of us are going to see on the news, she's going to be on the news or on a current affair or whatever, being a 777, and we're all going to do that. "I was in that room when she spoke about that." I'm not going to run it, but I know people who might be able to fund it. So what is your dream? And have you lost it? Have you written it down? Do you know what it is? If you haven't got one, find one. Dust it off, dig it up, do whatever you have to find something about you. And that, for some of you, will be frustrating. Because some of you go, I don't know. You don't have to make it up. You have to begin to investigate.
I might just interject in there if I can. I know that we're talking a lot about fitness and running because that still is part of my dream. The thing that I want to, not so much for Phil, but the thing that I want to encourage you about is that your dreams are yours, not somebody else's. And I know Phil was joking there before, if you don't have one, pinch someone else's. No. There is something in your heart that you were born to do. And I believe that for a long time. The things that I want to achieve aren't going to be the same as what the person next to me wants to do. My job, like Phil's saying, is to encourage them to be, if they want to be a pilot or a chef or a hairdresser, whatever it is, if they want to run marathons, whatever their goal is. You know, I got excited about part of the people that I'm training with. They're winning some of these amazing races, and I'm standing on the sidelines cheering from afar saying, "Good on you." Because you've gone out there and you've put the hard work in and you've achieved what you wanted to achieve. So your goals are about you. They're not about your buddy and your best mate and what they're doing. Sometimes I can compare my goals to other people and think mine aren't big enough. Mine aren't good enough. Mine aren't the thing that it needs, the trendy thing at the time. Your goals are about you. What it is that you want to do. what it is that you dream about when you lie asleep or, falling asleep at night. What are the things that are in your mind that you're thinking, oh, imagine if I could do that. That was what I said once upon a time about marathon running. Imagine if I could run and not stop for 42 Ks. I thought about that. But there was a time, I tell you guys, there was a time where I couldn't do more than a lap around the Liddell Lake. And I went from that to that because I was determined and I wasn't going to let any of these things, and people around me weren't going to let any of these things get in the way. And that's exactly what it is for you. Like Phil's saying, if you've had a dream that you feel like you've let go of, there's no reason why you can't pick that back up again and start to chew off part of the elephant at a time. No, I know we're talking about elephants, but seriously, one step at a time is a motto that a lot of people live their life by. Because you don't want to necessarily look at the whole picture. You want to take one puzzle piece and put it down on the board. And then you want to get another puzzle piece and put it, and then all of a sudden you make a picture of what it is that you want. But you need to consider all the little bits and pieces along the way in order to create that picture. So I really want to encourage you, don't try and be somebody else. Don't try and do someone else's goals. Follow what's in your heart, what you're passionate about, what you feel like you're born to do. And it doesn't matter about any of these things. It doesn't matter about how old you are. It doesn't matter about how tall you are. There's plenty of people that say, I'm too tall to be good at running. What? Okay, sure. I just don't listen to that anymore. I just don't listen. I choose. My goals are for me and I'm going after them. No matter what anybody else tells me, whether I'm good enough, whether I'm healthy enough, whether I've got the right I don't care anymore. I'm doing what I'm focusing on because I'm passionate about. Because I friggin' lie awake at night thinking, why can't I do this? And I'm sure we all do. We all have those things that we just really are passionate about striving after. And the only thing that's going to stop you is you allowing these things to get in your way. And sometimes we just need to break it down a little bit so that we know just the next step. I don't have to run 777 tomorrow. What I have to run is a certain amount of kilometres. And then in August I've got an event that I know I've got to be ready for because that's going to help me get ready for the next event next year because it's just the bit in front of me at the time. So this week, tomorrow, you get to wake up in the morning or even tonight in PAX, you can go, what is just my next step right in front of me? It doesn't have to be 4 months down the track. It's tomorrow. What are you doing tomorrow about your dreams that are in your heart? It's about you. It's not about your buddies.
So, know your BO, right? So, if you don't know your BO, maybe your friends need to tell you you've got it, right? So, that's important to know your BO. And final story, a friend of mine was riding push bikes, one of those kind of individuals, and he's out, he'd do 300, 400 kilometres, and every time he hit a hill, he would like get halfway up the hill and just stop, uncleat and get off and walk up. Anyway, he's riding with a guy one time, he was riding up, he gets up to the top of the hill, his mate gets up to the top of the hill, he gets off his bike, he's looking down and he sees my mate coming up, he says, what are you doing? He says, mate, every time I hit the hills, I run out of steam. He says, well, what are you looking at? He says, well, I look at the top of the hill and go, this is just too steep. He goes, well, you're right. He says, I'll tell you what we're going to do. The next hill we go down, let's lock in. And he said, all I want you to do is just look down at the road in front of you and push one leg down, one leg down, one leg down, one leg down. Got to the next hill. He kept saying to him, mate, push that leg down, push that leg down, push that leg down. Climbed these enormous hills. Never got off his bike again in the rest of the 300 kilometres that they did. So sometimes it's just like Beck is saying, break it down to one leg at a time, just one leg down, one leg down, one leg down. We're not trying to make it hard. We make it too hard, it is too hard. Just make it really simple. Keep it simple, and you'll be able to achieve it. So this week, when you're in your packs, I want you to think about what your dream is and how is your pack going to help you achieve your dreams. Yeah? Let's do it. Know your BO. Right.
3, 2, 1, let's jam. Hello everyone, welcome back to this week's edition of the Bridge Builders News. First thing you're going to want to know, 2 weeks from now we're having our next Babab session. So all of you new members who have been here 4 times or more, you're eligible for that session. What that means is you're able to participate in events like the ones I have written down here. So without any further ado, let's get on to the first event news with someone who I have standing just over there at that spot there.
Hey guys, I have our Tinwara coming up this weekend. It's in Kilsyth on Liverpool Road and Mount Dandenong Road. It is Hawaiian themed and it's goes from 8:30 till 4:30. You can either do all day or you can do the morning shift, which is 8:30 till 12:30, or the afternoon shift, 12:30 till 4:30. You can sign up via the app or Facebook or talk to your pack leaders, and there will be a sign up sheet. That's all I got for you. Goodbye.
Thank you for all that information there, Hayley. Moving on, we have our business breakfast, our 14th annual business breakfast, coming up in just 3 days. I got the right number this time. 3 days from today. So that's the 24th. It's going to be Thursday morning. It's a lovely morning. There's a whole bunch of businesses getting together in a room. We're listening to a guest speaker. His name's Gavin Smith, president of Bosch Australia. I'm sure you've heard all about this before. Here's our lovely flyer. And if you're interested in that, be sure to let anyone know. It still might not be too late to sign up and help out on the morning if you're interested. Now, moving on to more interesting things, we have our 5-cent campaign. Now, this, as you know, we had our collection day last Monday. You can see our barrels at the back of the room. Am I pointing at it? No, not really. Irrelevant. Anyway, so, if you have any 5-cent coins, feel free to chuck them in any bucket. If you want to take a bucket home, talk to Naomi. She'll sign you up and you'll be able to donate. Yeah, donate on the go. Leave the bucket in a shop somewhere, come back, maybe people are giving it money. Make sure you tell the shop owner you've left it there. Don't just leave a bucket there, that'd be weird. Anyway, that last bit wraps up the news for tonight. So I hope it was all informative and you now know a bit more about our 5-cent campaign, or our 10 rattle coming up this weekend, or even our business breakfast coming up in just 3 days. Good night.
Hi guys, we have our 10 rattle coming up this Saturday. It's in Liverpool. It's in Liverpool.
That's London.
It starts at 8:30 in the morning and goes till 4:30. You can either do the morning shift, which is 4:30. No, that's not.